Hello, my name is Brian Sharp, and I'm the manager of the Career and Employment Services Unit here at Lower Columbia College. We're going to be doing a workshop today on being your own best self-advocate, or being a self-advocate today. So, good morning, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. What we're going to be talking about is something that is really kind of near and dear to my heart, because so many times in my own past and with students I've worked with over the years, I've noticed that some of the problems that they've had have kind of almost been self-made. And when I say that, I mean that if they've only would have asked a question, if they only would have said something at the right point, they could have avoided a lot of the issues that spring up in their life. And so we created this workshop just for those people and to help people in similar situations. So what we have here is being your own best advocate, or taking the reins of your future. We have a nice little quote there: "I am the master of my fate and the captain of my destiny." And really, that's kind of what this boils down to. Is when you are your own best advocate, you are looking out for your future, for your education, for your work, for your social life. It can come to anything. So, as we go through, and let me correct that real quick. Self-advocacy, I want to kind of define it first. And this is something that I went to a lot of different places to look at what it is. And you hear all of these paragraphs, pages defining what self-advocacy is. I tried to boil it down to a single sentence. So what I said is, self-advocacy, the skill of recognizing one's needs and acting in a controlled, reasoned manner to meet those needs. I wanted to point out a couple things on here. First, I used the word skill. I used the word skill when I talked about this. And when I used the word skill, the reason I wanted to say that is because, do you think this is something you're born with? Is this something that maybe it's just a natural talent or a natural kind of a way of being? This is, and I use skill on purpose because it's not. It is something that you develop. It is something that you work on. It is something that you practice at. And then the rest of it is acting in a controlled, reasoned manner to meet your needs. So first you have to recognize, what are my needs? And when I say needs, that could be anything from, your actual basic living needs. It could be your education, it could be your work, it could be your desires and wants. And so this is acting in a controlled, reasoned manner. I mean, that means you think about what you're doing. You don't just willy-nilly act out without a plan, without any kind of thought. You're thinking through what you're going to do to best meet your needs and desires. So I'm going to go through, as we said that, I'm going to actually start with a couple of examples. And we're going to see, are these self-advocacy examples or are they not? So the first one, you're a first-generation college student. Your family supports your decision to go to college, but they don't know how to guide you. And we get a lot of people here at LCC, and actually any place I've been, you get a lot of people that this is my first time through. I don't really have any reference to do this. So through research on the school website, you set up meetings with entry advisors at the school that you want to attend. Is that an example of advocacy, do you think? See if you head's shaking yes. Yeah, and actually, yes, it is. So we're going to look at another example, and this is one from social life. So, and almost everybody could nod their heads and said, yeah, this has happened to me. So your friends are picking an activity for Friday night. Okay, there is one person, and there's always that group leader, right? In any kind of a situation you're in, a social situation, so there's a group leader. He says, why don't we do this? You look around and you can kind of see by people's expressions that this isn't the most popular idea, but as is often the case in these kind of situations, people stop and say, well, I don't want to be the person to bring it up and kind of kill the mood. I don't want to kill the vibe that's going on here. So I'm not going to speak up. I'm going to let this person kind of decide what we do for the night. So you just go, and because you don't want to cause a conflict, you don't want to spoil the evening, you go. Now, is this an example of self-advocacy? No, I see a few heads going no. One was kind of saying yes a little bit, and this is no. And I picked these examples first because as we go through this, we're going to look at some elements of advocacy. We're going to talk about what is and what isn't, and we'll look at some more examples at the end, kind of some real-life applications of things I see in this office all the time. And by that, you're going to see that why is one yes and why is one no? Just defining what self-advocacy is doesn't really tell you. So we're going to look at some elements. So there are three basic elements that we're going to look at when we're thinking about self-advocacy. And through these elements, we're going to throw in a few other things that add to it. And from that, we'll be able to kind of figure out, one, how do you define it? How do you recognize it? And how do you kind of put it into practice in your own life? So the first one is a knowledge of you. You can't be your own advocate if you don't know what you want and need, if you don't know about yourself. Does that make sense, everyone? So, knowledge of you. This includes things like your personality, your strengths. And I added this third one in after I'd started doing this. I added this in because this is really important. But your knowledge of your skills, your experience, and your abilities. You have to know what your abilities and what your skills are, what your knowledge level is. What are your likes and dislikes? What's your learning style? What's your communication style? And what are your limitations and your needs? So, I want to talk a little bit about a couple of these right here. Why would it matter if you know your personality? Why would it matter if you know your skills and your likes and your dislikes? Any ideas? Why exactly? So the reason why, your personality is going to determine how you stand up for yourself, what ways you do things. And if you know stuff, if you know what you want and who you are, you're going to be better able to recognize what are those things that I'm after, and then how can I start standing up for these things for myself. The second thing, you know you. Now that you know who you are, you have to know what your rights, responsibilities, and resources are as a student, as a person, and as an employee. Now this is really important because, and you'll see in some of the examples we do later, is if you don't know what your rights and responsibilities are, how can you ever really stand up for yourself? And this is true in everything from financial aid here at school, to being in the classroom, to being at work. How should you be treated at work? How should you treat others? If you don't know these things, you'll never be able to stand up for yourself. And so, knowledge of the process is another thing. How should something work? If you don't know how you've been at a company and it's time to get raises, for example, which is going to be one of our examples later. If you don't know how the process works, how will you ever know if you're up for a raise? If you are part of a union and there's some kind of labor dispute, how will you really know what your rights are and what you should do and what you shouldn't do? And this is obviously something that requires a lot of research. And luckily for us in this day and age, we have a lot of resources at our fingertips. If you're at school, it could be your student handbook. It could be something as simple as going on to our website and looking something up if you have a question of how something should work. Or your syllabus, if you're in school. If you're in an office, it could be your contract that you signed when you started with a job. It could be a union handbook. I mentioned union just a little while ago. It could be that union handbook. It could be a program guidelines or office policy. You should always know those things. If you don't know those, again, how are you going to stand up for yourself? So the third element that I wanted to talk about is, and this is the really important one, knowledge of who can help. There are so many who or sometimes a what can help. Again, when I say what, I think of like a handbook or online resource. But there are so many people that can help you figure out what kind of resources are out there, what kind of rights and responsibilities do you have, then people that know you that can help you figure out what kind of things can help you move along to your ultimate goal. So, how can I learn to navigate my way? I just brought up a few. There are obviously more than this, but mentors. People that can bring you under their wing and kind of guide you through a system. At school, that could be your advisor. It could be an instructor. It could be somebody that's gone through school already. Asking an expert. So somebody that really knows the process. For example, our financial aid desk. Those are our experts. They know financial aid. Why not befriend one of those people to ask them questions? Why not just come to the front desk and ask questions? Online, I mentioned earlier, teachers, co-workers, classmates, counselors. We have a counseling center here that is luckily pretty widely well known, but nobody really thinks of, oh yeah, I'm getting ready to graduate, what should I do? And these counselors can actually give you some advice on what you can do. And then, of course, family and friends. So, communication style kind of feeds into all these elements. And I brought this up special. It's not one of the 3 elements, but it's something that I like to bring up in all of my workshops because communication style is key to be making sure that you can reach for what you need and achieve it. So these are kind of buzzwords. They've been used quite a lot. Assertiveness. And a lot of people stop and ask, what is assertiveness? And assertiveness is communicating in a way that is confident and assured and is looking out for not only your needs, but the needs of others. So how does this relate to communication? Communication, so it's assertive, expresses what you want, your rights, your responsibilities, your needs, without violating the rights of others. And I'm going to talk about a couple other different kinds of communication styles, and we'll compare and contrast those here. You guys have heard of aggressive communication styles. Aggressive is, easiest way to put it, it's win-win. It's win-lose, sorry, it's win-lose. Somebody is the winner, somebody is the loser. My needs were met, who cares about the rest of their needs? Anybody else? That's not even a consideration. I win, I get what I want. Passive aggressive, or passive is another way that's often said. This is one where, and this was used in our example with the friends going out on Friday night, this is one where people are they're meeting other people's needs above their own. And you can see how these are opposite ends of the spectrum. Here's the other person, it's a lose-win, it's a win-lose. The assertiveness, it meets in the middle. Everybody can win. And this is so important in self-advocacy because especially when it comes to finding others to help you, nobody wants to help someone that's only in it for themselves. So your communication style will really help you advocate for yourself. And then also what I want to talk about is levels of communication. And when I say that, I mean, I'll give an example. For those of you that have a brother or a sister, we have a conflict with your brother or sister, and it happens. And the first thing you do, if you run to mom, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that. And what's the first thing you say? Well, did you guys try to work it out? What did you do? No, I just ran to you first. That's what I mean about levels of communication and how you do this. You start with an appropriate level. I don't run straight to mom. If my brother or sister takes my toy, I ask them for it back. Please, can I have my toy back? I'm using it. And so many times you see children, and I have a background in elementary education, so I kind of use elementary examples sometimes, but it's an easy one because everybody's been there. So another example is, I've seen this, and I know you guys have probably seen this too. I see it at the front desk a lot for financial aid, is you have somebody that has done their research. They've looked at all their rights, all their responsibilities. What can be possibly mine? And they go up to that front desk, they're armed with a list of here's all the appropriate laws and everything that apply to me. And then they go and they come at that front desk arrogant almost. These are my rights, these are my responsibilities. What are you going to do to make sure that I get this? And it comes across as being arrogant, like I said before. It comes across as almost aggressive or passive aggressive at the very least. And again, we talk about the three things, knowledge of who can help. Is that person going to want to help you? If you get to that situation where you're coming across as a know-it-all, you're coming across as somebody that is almost hostile. And so that's why I talk about levels of communication. You want to, it's going to lead into our next slide, which is nonverbal communication. Part of it is your tone of voice. Part of it is how you speak. But it's also going to be much of what you say, and we've all heard this, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And this is very true in everything from interviewing. You go to your first job interview. This is also true in self-advocacy, is when you're talking to someone, and this is something you have to keep in mind, how am I holding myself? What is my posture? Am I making rapid movements? Am I not maintaining eye contact? Am I looking down, or am I looking off into another direction? It does convey to the other people that you're speaking with, am I being honest? Am I really serious about this? Or is this just something I'm going through the motions? Tone of voice is huge. If I'm talking to someone, like I'm in this classroom, I project my voice a little louder. Maybe use a little bit more formal speech. If I'm meeting with a person one-on-one across a desk from me, I change how I talk. And if I'm meeting with an instructor versus someone at a bank versus someone at my first job talking to my manager, my tone changes, my word choice changes. And that leads to the next one, word choice. If I'm using a really informal mode of speech, to somebody who's a professional, again, I'm not connecting with that person on a level where we can both win, where it's that assertive style that we can all do what we need to do. And then the other thing, and I throw this in here too because people look at that last one, clothing. How does that really relate? Clothing is a huge thing. It can be a very huge thing. It shows, again, it can show just like your word choice. It can show how serious am I about what I'm saying. How invested am I in whatever I'm trying to get across. That is, remember, self-advocacy, something that's going to help me achieve my goals and needs and desires. How is that going to really happen if I come in dressed in pajamas and a t-shirt? If I come in looking like I mean what I say, people are going to take me seriously. So, this is kind of a sum up. Elements of self, and all these elements combine to create a communication style that allows you to recognize your needs and act in that controlled, reasoned manner to meet your needs. That was the definition of self-advocacy, right? The last part of that sentence. And what the slides we've gone through, the knowledge of you, your rights, resources, and processes, and those come up into recognizing your needs and acting. Your assertive communication style and your nonverbal, paying attention to your nonverbal cues is going to help you with communicating those styles to others. So, I want to talk now about a few factors. And these are going to be things that are going to change kind of how you choose to communicate with others. There are a lot of things that are going to affect them. I put a few examples up here, and there are more. But these are some of the main ones that I've come across in my time and that I've read about and that I've in research too. So, background and upbringing. Again, remember I talked it was a skill, not a natural inborn talent. Your background and your upbringing is going to really shape how you can be your own advocate. Not how good you are. Well, it can affect how good you are in a way, but this is something that's going to initially kind of flavor how you do this. So some cultures, for example, background, upbringing, and culture kind of all come together. Some cultures, communication, being assertive is maybe not something that's smiled upon. And this is why it's something that it is a skill. It's something you can learn. This is something that you kind of have to learn to navigate college and your professional life and your social life from here on out. Support is huge. Support is big. And I have an example that I use that it happened a couple of years ago, but it's never left my head. I had a student coming in here to the Career Center, and she was in a nursing program. And the first year of our nursing program, you're doing prerequisites. You apply to the nursing program after your first year. And she was almost to that point, and all through her first year, she had a mother who told her, "You're not good enough to be a nurse. Why don't you just be a medical assistant, a CNA? Why are you taking this risk?" And it was something that it stuck with me even after all these years, because that lack of support really kind of undermined how she was able to get the help she needed to get through that first year and get accepted in the nursing program. And it stuck with me. But that support, whether you have it as a family or whether you choose to find people that can support you, is very important to guide you along being a self-advocate. If you're not around people that support you, find people that can. Again, I gave that list: mentors, professionals, teachers. Find somebody that can support you. And if people aren't supporting you, you have to find a way to kind of shut them out of parts of your life so that you can move forward. Lack of knowledge is enormous. If you don't know your rights and resources, how are you gonna fight for them? If you don't know the loan process, for example, for financial aid, how are you ever going to navigate, or the financial aid process in general, how are you ever going to go there? If you don't understand how a teacher grades, if you don't understand where I can get help if I'm struggling in, say, math, if I'm struggling in reading, if you don't know where these things are or that they even exist, how can you help yourself? The next thing is your confidence level. You're not, again, if it's a skill, you're not going to start off an expert in being an advocate. It's something that you learn over time. And this is going to really be something that confidence and success builds on itself. So you start with self-advocacy, and it's going to build upon yourself, and before you know it, it almost becomes natural. The other part is the situation. Certain situations you're going to be very comfortable in. Others are going to be maybe new ground for you. And depending on the situation, that may be affect, like, I don't understand this. I'm never a person who's shy to ask a question. Why am I in the classroom not asking a question now? Because it's a new situation. Because it's something you're not used to. And then the last one, all capital letters with 3 exclamation points, so it must be important, right? Practice. Practice, practice, practice. And I say this because, again, I mentioned confidence level, situation. This is something that the more you practice, the easier it gets. The more you practice, the easier it gets. And as you practice, you can go across situations. Oh, right, I can be my advocate at school, but I get out to my first interview, I meet with bosses, and I'm just totally meek and I cannot speak up for myself. Again, the more you practice here, the easier it transfers into other parts of your life. And again, social is a good place to start. Start with those social ones. Remember that first example we had? Your friends, the leader of your group says, I want to do this. Maybe that's where, well, maybe you look around and notice by those, remember he said you noticed that other people didn't like it? That's reading those body tones. You know, you're reading that body language and everything. And you're saying, well, how about if we do this? And then see if people agree. Practice those kind of things and it will get easier and easier. So, benefits. You notice it's blank because I kind of wanted to see what you guys thought on this. Please feel free. I know we're on camera, so people might be a little shy, but I put it down into 2 different things. Benefits of self-advocacy for yourself and for your future. So how do you think being a self-advocate can benefit you? Such a shy group today.
I definitely need it.
You need it, but so how can it benefit you though?
Like we said, I gotta know my knowledge of what to do at work and what, like L&I.
The labor and industries, L&I is a huge, trust me, I've worked, when I was at WorkSource before I came here to the college, it's something that I have worked with in the past, and just the volumes of stuff that those people have to know, how can they expect you to know that? You're a student, you're a mother, you're somebody that you have a job, may have a part-time, full-time job. So how can you also know all these rules that apply to it, right? And so being that self-advocate is going to help you know what your rights and responsibilities are exactly. Is it going to help your confidence maybe?
Definitely.
In your whole life, not just in that one situation? And then what about for your future? Raises, promotions at work. Remember, this self-advocacy isn't just for school, it's for everything. At school, at work, it could be raises, it could be promotion. It could be job happiness. Finding love. Okay, you were shy, you didn't want to say it out loud, but finding love. Relationships are huge. I mean, this is not just about going to a dating website and finding the perfect person. Being an advocate means you know who is that right fit for you. You know who is a person that's going to compliment you, that is going to be somebody you want to spend your time with, friends, social, all your social engagements. It can help you find the right place, right fit for you. And actually, it also leaves you in control. And I underlined you and I bolded it even. It leaves you in control and able to shape your future. The future isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you can control and create. And that's one of the major benefits. And then for yourself, that increased chance of success or satisfaction. Those are some of the main things about that. Confidence is always a biggie, but also you're in control of your future, you're shaping your future, and because of that, you're going to be more successful, and you're going to realize that success. It's going to be something that is not just, oh, I got lucky this time. Oh, wow, I'm not just going to stumble into my dream job. I'm going to go out and find that job. I'm going to take what I have and I'm going to go that direction and find it. And that's one of the major things. So I wanted to end this off with 3 kind of real world applications, and we're going to talk about each one of these as we go through. And this is, I use these because these are ones, again, that happen all the time. These are people that I see at my desk, because as a manager, unfortunately, a lot of times I feel like I don't get to see somebody until it's kind of reached that emergency. It's reached that, oh gosh, I don't have any other options left. What do I do? And so I picked these. Financial aid. You are a first quarter college student taking 12 credits. So that makes you a full-time student of classes. because as with most freshmen, their first year students, that first quarter is often kind of the like jumping in a ice cold bath water. I mean, you're jumping in, it's a shock to the system. And so what happens to a lot of people is you realize that you're caught off guard, and you realize that I'm in over my head, and you fail. 2 classes, a 5 and a 3 credit. That's 8 out of 12 credits you just failed. I've actually seen many where it's more than 8. It's like they actually fail all 12. And so this is a big thing. And then what happens? Well, first you get your report card saying, hey, you didn't do so well. And then you get a letter from our financial aid office saying, you are now on financial aid warning. If you don't get your grades up to a certain level, if you don't get up to, it's called pace of progression. If you don't get up to a certain level by the end of the next quarter, you're going to lose out on your financial aid. So, what do you do at this point? Does anybody have any ideas on that? I saw somebody say, open the book. You have a student handbook. You have a financial aid handbook. You have these resources that ideally you probably should have read those before you started your first quarter. We get busy, right? I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that I read my financial aid handbook my first quarter. It was just, I'm going to do fine just like I did in high school. Everything's going to be fine. And then you realize, oh wait, this is calculus. Oh wait, this is an engineering class. This isn't like personal finance, or this isn't algebra. These are a step above what I've ever had. And these teachers don't care if I'm here or not. I come to class and, boy, they don't even take roll anymore. So I might decide, okay, I can miss out on this Friday. I can do this. And so many students fall into that trap where now that, like I said, they failed 8 out of 12 credits, 12 out of 12 credits. And so one thing you could do is open that financial aid handbook. Another thing you could do is, remember we talked about the knowledge of you. What can I do to help myself succeed next? You got to realize, why did this happen? It's probably not because I'm not smart enough, because you're in college, you're smart enough. You got here, you're smart enough, but what made me fail this first time? So you got to look at yourself. Knowledge of your rights and resources and responsibilities, that's like we said, open the handbook. Read about what can I do? Okay, I've got myself in this mess now, how do I get myself out? And so then you also have to know about who can help you. Who or what can help you. That book can help give you the knowledge, but now who can help me get me on the right track? So this could be that mentor, your advisor, a trusted instructor. This could be you coming up and meeting with somebody in financial aid and getting somebody to be your advocate. Being an advocate to be your advocate is kind of how it works out. So there are a lot of different things you can do, but it all revolves around getting that knowledge, knowing yourself so that you can get there, and then knowing who can help you. The next one, I kind of tried to get a few different things in the classroom. So you're in a class where, and this is one that always ground my gears every time. I guess grinded isn't a word, is it? Ground my gears every time. You're in a class where a group project is required. Have you all been? I've seen a lot of heads nodding. Group projects, the magic word for me. That was the one where, okay, is it early enough for me to drop this and take another class? Is kind of how I approached that when I was in school. It's worth 40% of your grade. Several members of the group aren't pulling their weight, and by the looks on your faces, you've all been there, right? So they're not pulling, and now you're worried because 40% of my grade. If I lose out on 40%, I'm down to a 60, which is a D. So what do I do now? Again, you could just take it to the next level, and remember we talked about taking it to an inappropriate level and jumping right up and talking to the teacher. But really, that's not going to solve the problem, is it? So what we have to do, again, looking at those 3 factors that we looked at. Knowledge of yourself. Okay, you're going to have to know your communication styles. You're going to have to know what you're after. I mean, if you are somebody that this grade is important, you're going to have to realize that in yourself, and you're going to have to resolve to take action. Knowing your resources. Syllabus. In college, every teacher gives out a syllabus that probably goes over some of these things. What can you do? There are tutoring centers. There are different your advisors. Somebody that can give you some idea of what are my options. What can I do? What kind of things could I do in this group so that I can pull everybody together and get get this through and get a grade. And then the knowledge of your who can help, and kind of the rights and resources who can help kind of all blend together a little bit. So what would you guys do in this instance? Would you delegate? Yeah. You could break it up into small chunks, get together with your team, break it up into chunks so that maybe those people aren't doing something because it just looks too big. Yeah, exactly. So they could it looks too big, so now start breaking it up into chunks and say, I know you're having a little trouble with this group work. Why don't you take this piece for us right now, and then we'll work on it from there. In extreme instances, you may have to go to the instructor. I actually had one last quarter, a student that I was working with, where no matter what they tried, no matter what they did, there were 2 people out of a group of 5 that just never turned anything in. They were working on it, but unbeknownst to the rest of the crew, they were working on it and not sharing it with the rest of the group. They got everything done at the end, but because they weren't communicating, it was just the other 3 were stressed out. And what they did is one of the guys actually ran right to the teacher and said, I need to be in a different group. This group, we're not meshing well together. I need to get in another group. They did, and it all turned out fine for everybody. And so as you're going through this, you got to really take a step back and say, what can I do to help me move forward? And then we're going to look at another example. I had one person commenting on this when I first went through the rough draft of this, is all my examples were kind of negative. And some of these, they were all like, okay, something bad's happening, what are your rights? And I realized that, so I kind of wanted to throw one in that was a positive example. So I kind of chose one from work. And you're approaching your first year of your hire date. You've made it 1 year, so everything's great. Now, you are scheduled to talk with your manager. They're going to do a review of your performance after that 1 year. And you want to talk about the possibility of maybe getting a raise. So what do you do in that instance? And again, I want to do this because getting a raise is obviously a positive, right? So how would you approach this conversation? Okay, obviously knowing yourself, the knowledge of you. This again, not just your communication style, but here, knowledge of yourself could also apply to what have been my accomplishments over this year? What have I learned? What have I done to show that maybe I have advanced and maybe do deserve that raise or promotion? And so that also is an aspect of knowledge of you. It could be your education, your experience, your abilities. Remember, we talked about a number of things when we went through it. So knowing what you've done and what your value is to the company. Knowledge of your resources and rights, that could be looking at your contract. A lot of companies have policies where after 6 months or after 1 year, they start discussing the possibility of raises and promotions. So they are... that could be knowing that having that knowledge is really going to help shape how you get that conversation. And then the last one is knowledge of who can help you. Hopefully, as you get onto a new job, just like with here at school, as you're in a new job, find those mentors. Find those coworkers that have been where you are. Maybe they've been there 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and they can help guide you through the process. And hopefully you've identified that even from your first day. And so you now have an idea of, okay, I'm going into my 1 year anniversary meeting. I know who I can talk to. And I know I've looked at what I've done. I've looked at everything here. I've talked with these people to help guide and help me grow while I'm here. And now I can seriously sit down with that manager and with confidence talk about, it's been a year, here's what I've done, here's why I think I might deserve a raise or a promotion, and work with it from there. So, wrapping it up. I want to talk about, I have talked about a number of issues with self-advocacy. We've talked about your knowledge of you. We've talked about your knowledge of your rights, resources. We've talked about knowledge of who can help you or what can help you. And we've talked about your communication style. All of these things, together with a lot of practice and a lot of thought about where you're going in your life and where you want to go, are going to help you kind of map out a path for yourself, and by using these self-advocacy skills will help you reach that ultimate goal that you set for yourself, whether it's graduating with a certain degree, whether it's finding a career, whether it's, again, we had somebody bring up the social aspect, maybe it's finding finding a group of friends or a wife or husband, whatever it is, you can find these things, and it's not going to just be by a happy accident that you end up where you're at. It's going to be something where you've had thought, you've had planning, and you've used these skills to help you move yourself along there. So as we leave up, I wanted to also, I'm not going to take credit for everything that I've done here. I also want to point out some of our references. This is, again, in our computer age with online resources, with Google, it's amazing how much you can find. And I've touched the tip, this has been the tip of the iceberg. So there is so much more, there are so many more examples, there are so many more different resources that can help you. You've started the process here, now you can move on to the next step. Or you can also, in any college office, I know here in our resource, you can meet with a resource specialist. You can meet with a counselor. You can meet with somebody that can now help you kind of plan out your next steps. Thank you again. My name is Brian Sharp. I'm the manager of the Career Employment Services here at Lower Columbia College. If you'd like more information on this or any other topics, including writing resumes, interviewing, please visit us on our website or call us at 442-2330. Again, thank you.